Hello, everyone. My name is Sneha. I'll be moderating this session. Um, just to give you a background, I am a marketing and communications professional. I worked across many communication firms, and I am currently a volunteer with Cybertrust America. We had a very successful safety net accelerator, and I have two of the participants from the accelerator here with me today. So I'd like to welcome our two panelists, Donna Child and Lindsey-Taylor. So before I get started, I want to read a brief bio about them. So our first panelist is Donna Child. She's the founder and CEO of Prisere LLC. Donna created Prisere LLC to create a safer and more resilient world. Prisere LLC aims to fill that gap by building capacity for climate and disaster resilience with improved risk tools, including risk communications, risk mapping, and software apps, technical training, and consulting services. Um, Consider that most of the world lacks risk mapping and risk modeling tools essential to ensure resilience, and that in developed countries where such tools exist, emerging risks and a changing climate are rendering them obsolete. Prisere LLC aims to fill that gap by building capacity for climate and disaster resilience with improved risk tools and risk communications. Her educational background includes a bachelor's from Yale University, an MA in International Economics and Finance from Brandeis University, an MBA from Columbia Business School, and OPM, Owner President Management of Harvard Business Schools, for the founders of Fast Track Entrepreneurial Ventures. We also have Sequoia-Lindsey-Taylor, a second panelist. She's the founder of Ashe Wellness. As a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, she assists women to discover and decode their genetic genius so that they can be healthy, happy, and gain harmonies. Excuse me. This is done via genetic and functional lab testing so that you can stop guessing about your wellness and make your healthcare customized and individualized to you. Her background includes serving in the United States Army Reserves as well as working for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. She has also attended nursing school, functional medicine training, and is currently pursuing a bachelor's degree in integrative and lifestyle medicine. Thank you to the both of you for being here. And I just want to start off by setting the context. The pandemic happened, it's still happening, and a lot of small businesses have suddenly have to shift everything online, their business online. And depending on the stage of the business they are in, whether it's an early stage, a more mature one, or a more advanced one, some of them have been able to pivot um, online easily, while the rest are still trying to figure out what is the best strategy to kind of go online. So I'll start off with Donna. My question to you first is, you help businesses do risk management and help them prepare for business recovery. What was the pandemic like for businesses? What were you seeing? What was the kind of conversation you were having with them? And what was that initial conversation as soon as that happened like for you?
I think initially businesses that were online were struggling to play catch up because when they lacked physical access to their places of work, when offices and workplaces were shut down, they had to figure out new ways of generating revenue with virtual online marketplaces. And so it was a catch up effort. For those that were online, that type of risk measurement and preparedness of getting online first also introduced new risks because there are cybersecurity threats. And we saw those increase as more and more people were working from home, which they hadn't done before. So when people are working at their offices, they typically have computer networks, maybe on-site IT support, maybe protection against cyber attacks. And when they're working from home offices, they may not have those protections in place, or they may let their guard down because they're in the home environment. Maybe they're doing some bad things like letting their teenagers use their work computer and download things they shouldn't do. So that created a whole other set of risks, and that's what we're seeing.
Tech difficulty.
And I guess the other thing, the other thing that we're seeing as a consequence of that risk is that cybersecurity insurance premiums are increasing. That's partly because of people working from home without adequate protections, but also partly because we're seeing a whole range of very aggressive threats that we haven't seen before, like ransomware. The Fortune 500 companies are getting the newspaper headlines, but the small businesses are more likely to be impacted.
Absolutely. I think small businesses were impacted a lot more. We talk about large businesses having the capacity to invest and move, move their pivot and completely move online, but small businesses took the hit completely. I want to now, Sequoia, turn this question to you and address this part where you're in the health and wellness industry, and at the start of the pandemic, there was just so much chatter and discussion about, this new virus. Nobody knew a lot about it. There was just every day there was a lot that was being said. There was a lot that was being written, and everything that was going to impact our life. What was some of the conversations in the industry that was sort of going on online and offline, and how difficult was it for businesses in the wellness space to kind of understand what to share, what not to share, and how to kind of navigate that? And how did that kind of impact, one, your business, and then how did that impact your customers' business, and their kind of interaction with you as well?
So overall, as a health and wellness expert, I feel like in general, there was so much information and so much noise that was out there in the industry. So many people had questions. There was a million and one questions. And then the thing is like Donna said, we had to play catch up because there were not enough answers to those questions. And so not only were people nervous and scared about the actual healthcare, they had to deal with a whole pandemic that no one knew about. No one knew the origins, or they have ideas, but then no one knew about how was it going to affect them individually. So as a mass, you had a huge amount of people who were just putting information out there. So on the web and as digitally, there was a lot of information that may have not been correct. And then you have the whole flood of, do I trust this information? Who do I trust? Who do I go to get my information so that it applies to me and my family? As far as myself, I would definitely say as far as my business, it was definitely the pivot online. And the conversations with a lot of my clients were, hey, you can't see me in the office. And a lot of doctors and practices that they stopped going into the office as well. They had to transfer over to telehealth. And so making that pivot, we had to catch up as well. Like we were used to seeing our patients and clients in person. We were able to do our vitals and make charts and assess that person in person. But then we had to actually make that change and do it digitally. So not only are we having to deal with HIPAA concerns as far as what is being shared, what's not being shared, what's been sold, and then we have the additional digital security, the cyber security aspect added as well. So it became a lot for a lot of people to actually do that pivot, and I do believe that it gave us some grounds and foundations to be able to go forward as we learn and continue to make these changes.
So from your business, Sequoia, how difficult was that transition from offline to online for you in an industry where you're used to seeing clients come in, sit down, and have that conversation? How difficult was that pivot for you to go do that?
So for me, fortunately, because I already was on the digital platform in that way, in that space, it was probably about a 50% difficulty for the people who I was seeing in person, who are more local to me. Because of the work that I'm able to do and because I'm able to send a lot of the tests that are done to that client's home, it was already being done virtually. So for me, it was more about how do I show up virtually to gain more of those clients. That was more the problem. So out of 100 and saying, hey, it was very difficult, or on a scale of 1 to 10, it wasn't as difficult. It just was more of a workload transferring everyone over to a digital platform. And then the appointments became increasing because everyone was confused and scared about their healthcare. So that means that you have more people wanting to schedule appointments on top of them having to now transfer over to doing a digital platform. So that was where more the difficulty showed itself inside of our actual practice, that people had to learn how to schedule with us digitally, or get used to seeing me on a private lockdown call versus seeing me in person. So those were the things that were the most difficult for those people who were not actually already digital.
Thank you, Sequoia. Yeah. I want to take this moment to ask our viewers who are watching to put in their questions in the question box in the bottom. You can also comment your thoughts on if you're a small business owner reading this, what your experiences have been. And yeah, we'll read them out, and we also have a session to answer all the questions at the end. Donna, I want to turn this back to you, and I want to ask I want to step back aside to the very beginning and ask you, one, why do you think it's important for small medium businesses right now to embrace this digital transformation that's happening, and additionally also address this question of what is the lifeline for a small medium business right now? Like, what is that functional element for them?
I think it's important for small businesses to embrace digitalization to enable resilience. Our business, Prisere, was already online before the pandemic. And in fact, that's kind of a critical pillar of our resilience planning, that heaven forbid, in the event of emergency, if we were displaced, we could continue to operate our business virtually, remotely, from multiple locations if needed. The genesis of Prisere is my experience of being in the World Trade Center on the morning of 9/11 when the plane struck the towers.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived in Battery Park City, which is the residential community in the shadow of the Twin Towers. And so when our neighborhood was closed and evacuated, I was able to run my first business remotely. And of course, that was 20 years ago before cloud computing. So it's important that we can, to the extent possible, operate at least some of our business functions from different locations when called for. Of course, in the pandemic, many of us were dealing with shelter from home scenarios, but that too requires digitalization and resilience. It's not just important to protect the downside. I wrote a book called Prepare for the Worst, Plan for the Best, Disaster Recovery and Preparedness for Small Business. Digitalization is not just about preparing for the worst, the pandemic, but also positioning for the best, because digitalization allows us to capture opportunities that were previously out of reach for small businesses. Like our business works with customers in Asia and Latin America, doing disaster resilience projects around the world. And that wouldn't be possible without digital technologies. And I also notice as more other small businesses are getting online and we're doing more digitalization work, it's opening opportunities that I even thought weren't previously available. I'm taking advantage of more opportunities now from virtual connection that wouldn't be possible if I had to physically commute to the location where these events were being held. I'm able to participate in a lot more than was previously possible. So I'm excited about the possibilities, and I hope we can get the word out to help small businesses capture them.
So I think is the sweet spot for a small medium businesses, the lifeline of a small medium businesses, knowing how to take normal processes and then make sure that they can run it online, how much of time and money you can save, and making sure it's a more efficient, streamlined process, and moving that online. Is that the core of what essentially they're trying to do? Either of you can answer this question.
Yes, I definitely believe so. And I agree 100% with Donna. Not only the downside of being digital versus being, virtual. Again, I was able to go into Canada, South America, even had a couple people in Asia, and I was able to service some of my military friends as well, because we're now on the digital platform. And so again, the workload can sometimes increase because you're able to virtually see so many people and many more people. And so for me, it's definitely not only the downside, but the positive side as well. Having a strategic plan of the things that you need to upgrade, understanding your budget, understanding the planning of where you want to go, and the things that you need to have as well. And I also think that comes along in having that structure, like you said, and actually knowing, hey, this is our weak spot. This is what we need to improve. This is who we need to partner with. This is how we need to structure the business, so that you're understanding that as we go and expand, because we're able to have those opportunities, then we are able to say, hey, this is not my area of expertise. I need to go to someone else, or this is actually already in our plan, and you have those things already assessed. So I definitely think that this is the sweet spot for small and middle sized businesses, because it allows you to be able to grow your business in ways that you never thought that you could. You can make connections with people from different countries and different languages now, and all those things. So it allows you to be able to expand and broaden your horizons far beyond what I think even the average business owner imagines.
And Donna, you spoke about resilience being one of the key reasons, and like the sweet spot. What else do you think are like the top drivers of driving this digital transformation for businesses? Like what are the top reasons for them to kind of move adopt? Is it more operational efficiency, enhanced productivity? What are like the benefits that business owners can kind of gain from just moving online and embracing that digital transformation?
I think the opportunities include growth. Sequoia had mentioned her military experience, and it made me think about women and wives who sometimes the military families move around, and very often the spouse will be a small business owner, because if one spouse is in the military, the other spouse has to find employment as the family moves. Sometimes they choose self-employment, and that digitalization allows them to take the business with them as they go. It's incredible. And it also helps, for example, when a disaster strikes, it helps the recovery process. I remember a case study of a bakery in New Orleans. Now, what happens after Hurricane Katrina? People aren't going to bakeries and buying discretionary items, but she was able to stay in business because she could sell her bakery goods online. And she was helped enormously when a national radio personality said how much he liked her cakes, and then she started shipping them. So it really expands resilience and growth. And finally, it allows for flexibility, and it allows, I think, for us to bring in a more inclusive workforce, whether it be military families who are moving around. Sometimes people with disabilities who need accommodation in the workplace might prefer digitalization and work from home arrangements. It's easier to do, or if they have family circumstances where they're trying to balance caregiving and remote working opportunities, digitalization enables that. It gets our costs down. Technology allows small businesses to punch above our weight, because we can reduce our costs to where we're competitive with large enterprises that have much greater scale.
Right. And how would you say, how is the place for businesses to start planning for it, right? How do you encourage them to start? Like, what would you draw their attention back to and say, hey, you need to solve this issue, so you need to get there. So would you start with kind of reminding them about their business priorities and list them down, right? So for all the business owners out there, what is your recommendation on how to start your safety net? You do know that you have to go online, right? I mean, now everything has moved online, and in a way we were always moving online. Now the pandemic has only kind of accelerated that and pushed that and made that quicker, right? So how would you recommend for business owners to kind of even get started with the process? What are the right questions they should be asking to go online, and how do they address those questions? Sequoia, you could answer this.
I would say starting with the SWOT analysis, and start with your need-based analysis as well. Writing it down and going back to the drawing board to see what do you need, what do you want, and then what things that are you able to do, and then what things do you need to be able to, get partnerships and build relationships with others to do as well. Donna brought up a great thing about reducing your costs. Once I did my SWOT analysis and my need-based analysis, I was able to reduce some of my costs that I had going into the office by 30 to 40%. That means that income was able to go to do independent contractors, to be able to come to other organizations who may be able to help me to learn more about digital marketing, to be able to expand as far as ads, to be able to promote out into the digital world. So those things can be reallocated if you actually take the time to do the needs-based assessment, to see what things some things you may still need and are a requirement and are a baseline to your actual business, the bottom line, and then some things you may be able to do away with and then reallocate those funds to be able to be used to help the growth and promoting your business as well.
That's an interesting point. I wanted to ask you all, what have you observed from a customer point of view? We have so many mediums and methods to connect with them online now, and people have more times. Everyone is home. A lot of e-commerce gets done. A lot of people are on social media right now. How have you seen that shift in customers' expectation and impact the way you communicate with them, the medium that you communicate with them, and how has that shift happened from before versus now? What is the kind of change that you're seeing, Donna?
What I'm seeing is sometimes people are feeling a little bit overwhelmed because this acceleration of digitization process has made people who were not prepared before feel like they're drinking from a fire hose, right? So I think it's very helpful to ask people, your customers, what is your preferred method of contact? Not everybody wants instant messaging because it can be a real distraction when you're interrupted all the time. How would you like me to reach out to you online? Is it through video conference? Is it through email? Is it through chat? What are your preferences? And then adopt to make sure that you're responsive to their needs.
Got it. That makes absolute that makes completely relevant points there. And I wanted to talk about, and this is something that from my conversations with the both of you before, I know running a small medium businesses is like a one-person army where you're like trying to do everything and try to be in charge of everything, and it can get overwhelming when you're kind of trying to do payroll, you're kind of trying to create strategies, maintain client relationships, right? How has that been for you through the course of pandemic, even before? How is it like running? What is it like to be running, a business during this time, right? And then I'll have a follow on to that.
It's overwhelming. It can be overwhelming and challenging because for the most part, when you're a small business owner, this is your baby. So you feel like you have to be all hands on deck. You have to have control of everything that comes in and goes out of the business. For me, I had to realize that yes, I am one person, but then I do need the army behind me, assessing again my strengths and weaknesses, and then connecting with the appropriate people to be able to assist me to go to that next level. There's only so far we can take our business if we do it alone. And by partnering with other people and by getting information from other people in your industry or other people who can assist you to help your business to grow is very beneficial. And so at first you have to do that self-assessment to say, hey, it's my baby and I understand that. But I know that I'm here to do whatever your purpose and mission of your brand is. You have to keep that in the forefront because you have to be able to say, hey, I need assistance in this area. If tech is not your strong suit, you need to get tech. If accounting, payroll is not your strong suit, you need to have an accountant, you need to have lawyers. So there's just certain people that you should have in place for your team to make your job and your business more smoother.
I would add to that when you're doing on Sequoia's point about how you can really make your processes run much more smoothly, like with your accounting and payroll. We've discovered that as well. And one thing I've noticed is that some of the mistakes that people often make, that small businesses often make, is they think that online practices and processes that were set up for consumers are suitable for business use. That's not always the case. So you should be wary of sharing confidential financial information by various methods online. Make sure that when you share I did my tax filing with my accountant remotely this year, and he has double encryption on his end, as do I. This isn't the opportunity to do the consumer file sharing. You're putting so.
Agree.
That's an interesting point where my next question was going to ask you, as business owners, what was that moment when you realized that cybersecurity was really important for you? Did you have any fail which kind of made you realize that, okay, this is extremely critical for me, and that shift happened immediately for you? Was that awareness always there, or is that something that grew as you built your business and understood that, you were dealing with confidential information and then privacy is important? So was that immediate, or was that shift over the course of time?
For me, it was immediate, and then it became extra heightened, because I always have to be aware of HIPAA violations. I always have to be aware of people's information being shared or stolen, because they're sharing not only their personal information with me, how they feel, the changes and things of that nature, but a lot of times they can have a lot of the health information. So I've always had the baseline that security was important because of HIPAA reasons and things of that nature, clear those other organizations. But during the pandemic, people became my clients, and the issues that they had became very, very heightened, because it's like, who do I trust? I'm already nervous and scared. I'm already concerned about my information being shared or sold. And then now you want me to go on a digital platform and have a meeting with you on a software that looks like Zoom. How do I know someone is not hacking your system? How do I know someone is not going to be viewing our live versus, just like everyone else? And so to Donna's point, those consumer-based type of rules don't always apply when you're an entrepreneur. For me, telehealth, I can't just use Zoom to have a meeting with one of my clients. I have to make sure that I'm in a secure-based locked-in program. And so there are programs and companies in our area, in our industry, that allows us to be able to access that. So when we're using telehealth, it has to be secured. It has to have those two layer authorizations. Those people have to actually learn how to log into a locked-in portal so that they have their information secured. And so it's all about securing your clients and letting them know but it was definitely something that was already baseline and a foundation concern, and then it became super heightened during the pandemic because people were even more so concerned about their data. They were even more so concerned about everyone being home and then they having access to their computer because they're online, and so who's sharing what and who's selling information as well. So it became a even bigger deal during the pandemic.
We were pretty prepared in terms of security, but I think the aha moment for me was seeing all of those public meetings, like our city council, the school committees, started having meetings online because everybody was working remotely for social distancing reasons. And you saw some of these Zoom conferences getting hacked. And that's what kind of raised awareness, is that even though your business may be scrupulously careful, we're all interdependent. And it helps to talk to your suppliers and your customers about their security measures, because we all depend on one another's security protocols to make sure that we're all safe.
Great point.
Got it. And I've heard, and I was myself part of one call where it got hacked. So the risk of it and the risk of being exposed to an outsider having access to your information is something that I think all organizations are trying to make sure that that risk is kind of minimized and that doesn't happen at all. I want to understand in terms of small medium businesses, do you think the challenges that they face, is it not being spoken about enough? Like, is there not a lot of conversation around this, the resources that they need, the support that they need? What are your thoughts around going online? Because a lot of businesses, and like I said, depending on the stage that they are in, whether they're early or not, some of them probably don't even have access to go online and do Zoom calls, or don't even have those resources. So what are your thoughts around this process of or this part where do you think there's enough resources and conversations around this?
Well, I think we need to help more small businesses, particularly in disadvantaged communities where they may not have broadband, they may not have other types of local IT support. And one of the advantages, I had an interesting experience with someone in Egypt, and imagine what it's like in a country where there's such a large of rural poor people. And one of the things that digitalization allows you to do is to bring that expertise to areas where it's not physically located. That's the positive. On the negative side, we need to be more cautious about cybersecurity. Did you know cyber insurance premiums are going to jump 40% this year? That's a huge increase. And we've got to help small businesses be protected, because the large Fortune 500, they get the headlines with the hacks, but it's actually more prevalent among small business.
Right. I agree with Donna. I also think that once we are aware of it and we're educated, we need to take cybersecurity seriously. I think Donna made a great point earlier when she stated about we are, as consumers, we have a lackadaisical, laissez-faire type of belief and arrangement when you come online. But as a small business owner, you have to take that cybersecurity seriously, because, as she said, insurance premiums going to go up, and we also have to keep in mind the safety that we want to make sure that we're going across. Everyone is on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and all these social media platforms, but as a business owner, you have to be aware that there are some serious things that could be going on in the back end that could seriously affect your business. So after we become educated and aware about what is going on, we definitely need to make sure that we're taking cybersecurity seriously, and then being open to learn and be educated about it, and actually utilize the resources that are being provided for us. Like that, sometimes it's a simple search or making a simple connection, like we did with Cybertrust America, and being able to have the access and actually utilizing and taking your cybersecurity seriously as a serious part of your business.
Oh, interesting points, and I wanted to share this. So the previous panel that we were just attending, and I think some of the audience had this, they said there was a discussion on educating your customer as well. So it's not just the business getting all the necessary protocols and everything in place, but how does your customer also know that, right? And I know Julian spoke about the two-factor authentication, or the two-factor part when you subscribe to a newsletter or all of that. How critical do you think it is for a business to also take on that part of responsibility of making sure that their customers are also aware of what needs to be done at this point, and aware of the risks that they're exposed to online?
it's critical. If your customer is paying your invoices electronically and they have your payment information online and they haven't secured it, you're at risk, even though you yourself may have done everything properly. So do reach out and have the conversation, and in a nice way of, this is what I've learned. I'd like to share it with you so that we can all be safe together. Something like that, not an accusatory, I hope you haven't put me at risk. Just as this is what I learned through Cybertrust America, I'd like to share it with you because we all need to take extra steps these days.
Yeah, I agree. And I think if we all become a part of the Cybertrust, we call all the cybersecurity family, then if, like she said, if you actually have your clients buying in, then they become responsible as well. So if they're making sure that they're secure and I'm secure, we're secure, helping everyone stay secure. And so it builds trust with your clients because they know that you take it seriously and they feel more comfortable with giving that information to you, feel more comfortable with sharing the information with you, so that no one is actually, being raised up or having cyber attacks and stuff like that.
I want to spend the last, the last few minutes of the discussion talking about the accelerator that we were all a part of, and what does it mean to kind of be part of a cohort where you have you have other women-owned businesses, because the challenges that women-owned businesses face are a lot more. So how does it feel to be part of a cohort where you're able to share stories, learnings, and get that kind of support that you need? And do you see that there's not enough of them out there? And do you think that's one of those systems that we need to do more, the information swap? So.
Me personally, I think it's an awesome thing. I mean, I get to meet people like you and Donna. So it's definitely awesome to meet women who are in business that are in different fields, that are different arenas, because we're all learning from each other. In my industry, in my field, especially in functional medicine, there are not a lot of women. So I'm usually surrounded by men. And so to have a cohort where we're learning about different things, being able to grow our business, learn about different ways that we can improve and make those connections are definitely wins for me. And I think it's awesome. And I definitely think that it needs to be spoken of more and shared on those opportunities shared for other women-owned businesses as well.
I really benefited from the Cybertrust Accelerator to be able to connect with women like Sequoia, and your expertise, Sneha. You had some great ideas for our digital marketing. And I was also, if you remember, I was the one who brought men into the mix because I had college interns last summer who were all male that were assigned to me, one from Kenya, two from Pennsylvania. And they were participating in our virtual sessions, and they had great resources to suggest to people. Like, they made us aware of Google ad promotions that we didn't know about. So it's nice to bring all that expertise in and share it, because then we start building on one another.
Absolutely. And for me, just to talk about the accelerator, I think it was a great experience for me to be able to, I think, collaborate with your businesses to understand what your market priorities were, what your audience was, and kind of put that together. I want to talk about two things over here. I think one is we talked a lot about small businesses not having that time and being that one-person army. How important it is to have a content calendar and a strategy in place, which we talked about quite a bit, and how that kind of reduces the amount of time you put towards that. And the other thing, I want to talk about the newsletter thing, the thing that we work about. So let's talk about content calendar, how important that is to kind of work. And then Donna, the work that we kind of did with you on suggesting different mediums, like Medium as a platform rather than Instagram for your business, and to understand how important is it to have those strategies in place to know the right audience in place.
It's extremely important. And I've learned kind of in an odd sort of way, because I'm a novice to social media, and we have college student interns, and it's great that they have this enthusiasm. At the same time, you want to have some risk controls in place to make sure that they're not unwittingly saying something that could compromise your brand, so to speak. So if you have a message you want to get, you want to stay clear of that. And the content calendar helps with that, because it allows you to provide some structure of here's what we're going to discuss. And then you can hand it off to your college interns or another employee and know that you have some parameters in place to get it done, and get it done in a way that's consistent with your business vision.
Got it. Right. And Sequoia, we spoke about the newsletter that you were struggling with, primarily because, as a small medium business owner, you have too many things that you're doing, and there was not enough time you could dedicate. So what shifted after that conversation?
Well, for me, I can go on and on about this, but for me, the going through Cybertrust and working with you specifically, Samir, the benefit was that you guys make my social media planning easy and no stress. So for me, the planning was the content calendar was great because I was able to schedule my information out for the month, go ahead and schedule it for the month, and then let it go. As far as the newsletter, it was making it more simple. And for me, and in my industry, we get so science, techy, geeky in our jargon, being able to speak to my audience in a very simple, easy way to say, hey, this is information. Here's a call to action. What do we do next? Was very helpful in that. And so I was able to use some of those same posts that I was making on my social media platform and then using that for my newsletter to be able to schedule those out as well. So it was like, hey, use your content calendar, pull a couple of those actual posts out, schedule it for your newsletter, have it go out on certain days, and then you're making that area of your business a little bit easier, a little less stressful, so that you can do what you're really called to do in your as a business and brand, but still show up online, which is important as well.
Got it. And integration is key, and we've spoken about this, right? Like if you have content that you're putting out on Facebook or Instagram, you could just replicate a lot of that into that. So it's just about saving time, laying everything out on one calendar, and then just executing the set project out. I want to kind of, I think we have the last couple of minutes, but I kind of want to wrap this up by understanding what do small medium businesses look for digital partners. What do they want? Talk about budget, talk about expertise, talk about industry experience. How does that experience translate? What are you looking for, essentially?
For me, it was definitely partnering with people who are going to buy into your vision, that understand your vision, that are not necessarily attempting to just show you what the masses are doing, but also looking at what you want to do, looking at your future goals, looking at where you've come from, and being able to assess those things and work with you as a partner. Also, someone who is able to, like you guys were able to in the program, to show us real world examples. So when I didn't think that as a practitioner who is used to seeing my patients in person, me showing up online is very important. I have to still give the information. I still have to educate. So to have real world experiences and real world examples to say, hey, this is the person, they're doing this. How can we tweak that to your brand? How can we tweak that to the way that you want to show up? Is very important. So when you're partnering with people who I'm going to work with you for your digital or your cyber security, make sure there's someone who understands what your vision is, understands who you are as an entrepreneur, as an owner, and where you want to go forward, to make sure that your goals and visions are being shown as well.
I agree with Sequoia 200%. You want a partner who understands and embraces your vision and doesn't try to impose a one-size-fits-all template on your small business, because each of our small businesses is unique and we want to express that.
Absolutely. I think 100% I agree with everything that you've said. I think there is that sync for sure that needs to happen, but I think companies understand the vision, understand what you need, and that kind of translates. So the last 2 minutes, I'm just going to quickly ask you, so any last words on why cybersecurity is important, why privacy is important, and why should business owners take that seriously?
Well, I think cybersecurity is important because you don't want to lose your reputation. You know, one breach, one hack, one devastating incident could affect a lifetime of work and sacrifice. So we don't want to engage in any type of catastrophic thinking or fear mongering, but let's be pragmatic about taking reasonable steps to protect the investment in the small business that's your livelihood.
Absolutely, because cybersecurity is not an afterthought, so when it happens to you, that's when you take it seriously. But this is kind of like for shadowing and taking care of that in advance. So, well, thank you so much for your time today. I really, really appreciate both of you for coming here. It's been great collaborating with you. It's been great discussing this with you. Thank you so much for your time, and I really appreciate this.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.